Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. It's your host, Rising Oblivion. Today, guys, I have some cool and interesting stuff to talk about here when it comes to ATLUS and Persona just in general. We have some record sales when it comes to the Persona series, and today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Persona 5 Royal Remaster, being the PS5 version and the versions that sort of went out and became that international multi-console release, basically, of Persona 5. So basically the big headlines here before we dig deeper is that the Persona 5 Royal Remaster within the fiscal year, which basically means the business year. Now, businesses don't always end the year technically on December. They sometimes have it be a couple months within the next year to sort of crunch the numbers and make sure everything is perfect, and theirs usually ends at the end of like March or April or so. So that's kind of why we're just now getting the record stuff for that. But this says that the Persona 5 Royal Remastered had reached 1.7 million copies sold within that like fiscal business year. The series in total, just the Persona series in total, had sold 3.2 million copies since April of 2022, so that's the start of the business year that we're going to be talking about. So 3.2 million copies sold for Persona in general. So I assume that a lot of that has to be coming from the Persona 5 releases on everywhere else, the multi-console releases for Persona 5, but also the Persona 3 and Persona 4 ports that were brought to everywhere else, which is really cool. And I'm glad that they did this, because this is going to be a direct line of, sales for ATLUS and SEGA to see that people still want to play the Persona series. Crazy how we're still buying Persona 3, 4, and 5, and they are having still record sales when it comes to the Persona series in general, because listen to this, the Persona series has sold 1.9 million copies more than the previous year, when it had achieved a 1.3 million copies sold from last April, so April 2021 to the end of March 2022. So they have gone over 1.9 million copies more than they did last year, which is insane, because we still had the Arena game that came out that year, but still, it is still breaking records in terms of sales when it comes to the Persona series. And again, it's still Persona 3, 4, and 5. It's nothing really too new. It's just still the same old games, but they're still selling lots and lots of copies, which directly has to make ATLUS and SEGA see that that has to do, a large part of the ports, being able to play these games on the consoles, other things, being able to play on Switch, playing on PC, Xbox Game Pass, I'm sure, did a whole lot for this as well. So that is a good thing. That is a direct line, like I said, of sales that ATLUS and SEGA can see directly from how this type of business method and doing these multi-console releases is a good thing, and I'm glad about that. I'm glad that they can see a little bit more when it comes to that. Here's a little bit of a breakdown first, but then we're going to talk about SEGA in general and its other IPs. But first, let's go over this little breakdown here for the Persona 5 Royal Remaster, which again is like the ports that we got to all the consoles technically. Even though the Switch might run it technically worse, the PS5 runs it better, they still kind of call it the remaster because it has all the content, has all the DLC. Technically there's some adjustments to the game to make it look a little bit different, run a little bit better, so that's why it's still technically called the remastered. But this is what we got here. So we had 3.27 million copies sold for the Persona series overall. Like I said, 270,000 copies were sold between April and June 2022, 230,000 sold between July to September of 2022, and 1.54 million sold between October and December 2022, which was the place where the international console releases happened. So going from just a couple 100,000 to then going over to 1.5 million because of the multi-console releases. Yeah, that's going to be a huge improvement in terms of sales. They obviously know that this is quadrupling the amount of sales because of these multi-console releases. Now, I'm not a console beggar or anything, I'm not always been the people who are saying put Persona on Switch and whatnot. I do think it's cool, it's a great idea, it's fun to play these games handheld. I'm not going to sit here and port beg forever for it or whatever, but it's kind of obvious to see that a lot of people wanted this and a lot of people did buy it, so that is a good thing, I think, overall, just for gaming in general and JRPGs and ATLUS being able to see that. But let's move on over to something else. And again, this is going to be just Sega's biggest assets and biggest IPs. So this little thing here actually shows what the games that sold the most for Sega's IPs. Sonic, of course, Total War, the Persona series, and the Like a Dragon series. Like a Dragon also includes the Judgment series within it because it's kind of a runoff of that. So this is the major IPs here that we have for Sega, and it's in thousands of units. So just keep that in mind when kind of looking at this graph. It says it there, but still, I've figured I'd tell you a little bit about that. So Persona infamously has kind of been towards the top whenever we've looked at this when it comes to their fiscal year. Again, if you look at the top, it says FY 2022, FY 2023. Again, that is the fiscal year. It doesn't always start and end at the like a new year, how you would think of a year going. It's more of the business year, so how they kind of run things. They have a certain point in time where they do that, again, to catch up and make sure they can crunch the numbers and everything, and also the, you know, income and all that stuff. There's a whole lot of jazz behind it, I'm sure, but fiscal year, it's a little bit different. So the Persona series being kind of second to last year, it's still doing pretty damn good though. I mean, if you look all the way throughout, that is still, guess, you know, it's in units of 1,000 units. So this isn't just, you know, 400 copies, 700 copies, 1,000 copies. This is in thousands of units. So that is a lot more than you think. That's 400,000 copies within Q1. So there is a lot of stuff still happening here when it comes to Persona, and that's a good thing. Sonic obviously being more towards the top. This was kind of lacking within the past couple of years. Again, Persona and the Like a Dragon series, and Yakuza also jumping higher up, because I think flat out Sonic just didn't really have a whole lot to bring to the table, honestly, when it came to games that Sega had to have coming out. But now that Sonic Frontiers came out, there's been a lot more hype around a mainline, I guess, Sonic game. It's a game that I think a lot of Sonic players really wanted. It's not just a normal Sonic game. It's a little bit more. I'm not a huge Sonic fan, but that is what it is. Total War, I'm not even 100% sure what that is. I guess, you know, it's just some other IP. I'm not 100% sure. Let me know in the comment section if you know what that is. I really don't know what that is. The Like a Dragon series, of course, has been becoming more and more successful. I think this is one of the best things that Sega has decided to, you know, do with one of their IPs. The Judgment series is also pretty good. Of course, we know that there's going to be more releases here in the future. They've talked about that. They've shown off a decent amount of that stuff, and honestly is a series that is kind of a hidden gem. I think it should probably have a little bit more, you know, I guess validity, a little bit more of a catch, but I'm just not sure if maybe Sega's pushing it enough or what. I'm not 100% sure. I see it around. I see a lot of other Sega fans and people talking about it, but it seems like a Dragon could do a whole lot more and should be recognized a whole lot more, because it is seriously one of the coolest looking series, one of the best series when it comes to just being a good JRPG. It's up there, honestly. It's up there with the Persona series, I would even argue, and some of these other major ones like Final Fantasy and whatnot. I definitely think it's up there, but it doesn't seem to have the same amount of spark, the same amount of jump as some of the other series do. Sonic coming out on top, again, Sonic Frontiers seems to have been why that was for Sega. But I think it's going to be wrapping things up here, guys. Let me know, do you like this news? I'm really excited that Persona is doing well and it's still kicking. I think a lot of content creators noticed a dip in views, a dip in content to even talk about. The mobile game, of course, is going to be something that can change a lot of things when it comes to, you know, sales, not just sales, but just hype for the community and just more things for us to talk about and more things for us to look forward to in the future. I hope that the mobile game doesn't become a complete, you know, shit show. Hopefully it has some more interesting things to show us. Hopefully there is going to be more news in regards to some dubbing stuff, like having an English dub or an international release. Again, it's sort of speculated that is going to happen. They've sort of talked somewhat about that in small bits here and there, but I'll keep you up to date on all that stuff. Of course, the Shin Megami Tensei 30th anniversary is also this year. We got one of our first posts, I think about a month or so ago, so I'll keep you up to date on all that stuff. So subscribe to the channel, click the bell to be notified whenever any big news thing comes out. Immediately, that is going to be something that you're going to be able to see. Down in the description below, I have shaker cups and stuff like that, energy drink type things. You can get 10% off your order if you use my code on w.com. If you like G Fuel, gamer subs, that sort of situation. It's a lot like that. It's great stuff. I love it. But that's gonna be it for now. Like, comment, subscribe for more content. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you all so much for watching.